It's become my favorite concept, my favorite thing in life, really, in the world of ideas and in the world of experience. My very favorite thing. Uh, I've talked about it a ton, and I'm going to talk about it some more today because, believe it or not, we're finishing First Timothy. Cue the applause, okay? Uh, Paul concludes this letter to Timothy, and he uses a conclusion that's not unique to First Timothy, where this is in verse 21, the very last sentence. Grace be with you all. Now, two things. I'm going to start at the back end and then go to the front end of that short sentence. Paul writes this letter to Timothy, but he closes the letter by saying, Grace be with you all. Now, to me, seems like he would probably have written, Grace be with you. So why would he say you all? Well, he was not from southern Israel where they say y'all, which they don't do. Okay, that was a pretty lame joke. Why would he say you all? Grace be with you all. Because he knew this was the practice. Any letter that was sent by an apostle to someone was going to be read and reread by other individuals in other churches, so that Paul would have had a confidence that Timothy would have read this letter to the church at Ephesus, where he was the pastor, but that it would probably, well, more than probably, we know that what happened was that letter was then copied meticulously and then sent to other churches, first in the area and then others as they heard about it and could get their hands on it. We have no concept, because there's nothing in our experience to connect with, how rare and precious the scriptures are today and were, especially back then. Realize that the only scripture that was widely available to Christians in century 1, especially the first half of century 1, was what we call the Old Testament. They called it the Bible. Well, they didn't even call it the Bible, because the term the Bible came much later. Okay, that's no big deal. But here's the deal: what we take for granted, as for most of us, our favorite part of the Bible is the New Testament, and we live by it. It informs us, it instructs our life, and it should. And what a privilege to have these documents put together in a format that's so accessible to us. We see, the first century Christians didn't have the New Testament. They were they were the primary characters in the New Testament, the participants in its origin. Paul's letters, Peter's letters, Jude, John's letters, these, and then the Gospels, the biographies of Jesus' life, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. These were, for us, that's the New Testament. They were being written, copied. Again, I'll use the word meticulously. There was very little variance between the original and the copy. And it was the scribe who did the copying. The scribe prided themselves, and frankly, it was a man's world, and that was a man's job. So the scribe prided himself on the fact that there were no errors in copying. You do realize that the Bible has more. We can verify the veracity of the Bible, its accuracy, the Old and New Testaments, than virtually any other ancient document. There are more fragments of the original, well, not the original, but within a few years of the original. There are more. Now, a fragment could be, just a portion of a scroll. That's what the Dead Sea Scrolls were all about. These were ancient. They weren't, none of the originals exist that we know of, but these copies are older. I mean, they're closer to the original than nearly any. I mean, like the as I'm understanding it, I've studied a little on it. The copies of Plato and Socrates, these would be ancient, but there are more ancient copies of the original manuscripts of the Bible than there are of Plato, Socrates, any of the ancient writers. It's a big subject, and if you're interested in it, you can find all kinds of information about it. But Bunny Trail, come on back, Steve. Here's the deal. When Paul wrote to Timothy, he knew this was not just a letter that Timothy would read and put in his memory box. No, this was a document that I believe Paul knew would be read by lots and lots of people other than Timothy. There's a lot of really good stuff in that. One piece of it is the things that Paul was telling Timothy. For Timothy to stand up and say, well, this is the rule I was given, is one thing. But for Timothy to say, hey, I got this letter from our brother Paul, and I'd like to read it to you. He reads the letter, and in it are some very specific things that we've looked at. Have we looked at it? That really, they direct the life of the church. They define Timothy's role. There are certain specific commands for Timothy to execute on. It would be one thing for Timothy to say, well, I'm supposed to do this. It's another thing for him to read it and say, this is what our brother Paul, you remember the guy that, the apostle, and his authority is unquestionable. Okay, I'm reading his words. I can tell you from my experience, way back in the day, when I was a young minister, it was one thing for me to say, I think we should, or I've been told to. It would be another thing for, in my earliest days, for the senior minister to say, here's what we're going to do, or for the elders to say, here's what we're going to do. I could appeal to more than just what I thought I was supposed to do or what I wanted. I could appeal to an authority beyond myself, and that's one of the things that happened here. So that's a long explanation for two words: you all. What is you don't want to skip that. It's worth noting, okay? And guess what? We are part of that all in a kind of crazy mystical sort of way, but we are. But it's the front end that I most love. Grace be with you all. Grace. It's my favorite theme in the Bible. I've said this lots of times. It's also the name of our cat. We can't take credit for that because we inherited our cat from our middle daughter, Katie, and she named her Grace. She was originally, there's more information than you want, but she was, anyway, Grace. Grace cannot be bought or earned. Grace can't be deserved. If it can be earned, somehow bought, or deserved, it's not grace. It's something else. I love grace because of what it does. What it does is it sets me free. The grace of God sets me free to discover His design and find my best life by living within His design, not so that He will be good to me or give me stuff or like me, but because He has done that. And what has done that is His grace. I love Ephesians 2:10. When I was in the hospital after my heart attack in CICU, and one of the gifts God gave me, and He has done this all through my life, was wonderful people in my life. And one of those people was the senior pastor of our church in Las Vegas at Canyon Ridge, Kevin Oder. Kevin and 5 or 6 of the staff members had driven down from Las Vegas to Scottsdale to check on me, to be there for me. Kevin came into my room and he said, "Hey, I want to pray for you, but is there anything in the Bible you would like for me to read to you?" And my response was, and by the way, I was not really all there yet. I said, "Yeah, Ephesians chapter 2. And I probably slurred it pretty poorly. He read it to me. I love Ephesians 2:8 and 9 and 10. And in Ephesians 2:10, he says, "For it is by grace you have been saved, and this not of yourself. You have been saved by faith, and this not of yourself. It is a gift from God." Okay, that tells me this is the cornerstone of the theology, the philosophy, and the practical working of God's design in my life. It starts here. God saved me by grace through faith. It was His grace that saved me, not my act of obedience. Now, for me to access His grace, it requires my faith. But this is a thing I can't quite fully reconcile. My faith, according to James, has to have movement. All right, there's got to be something in it. But I don't do faith. I have faith. It's my faith that accesses God's grace, His good grace. And when I can receive His grace, when I can open my heart and embrace His grace, it makes it possible for me to extend it to others. And when others extend it to me, I feel most secure. When I extend it to them, I'm promoting their security. Who can you show grace to today? Well, a quick and easy answer is anybody I connect with. Who specifically? All right, I'm done. We're done with 1 Timothy. Woohoo! We'll start 2 Timothy next time on Soap Care with Stevie.